Monster Slayers will kick off a trilogy of similar games coming to the Switch in the next few weeks. With the higher profile SteamWorld Quest and the PC mega hit Slay the Spire to come, we'll be in first to market help this card drafting turn-based combat game. I'm Paul from SwitchedOn, and I'd like to thank you for checking out my review of Monster Slayers on the Nintendo Switch. Monster Slayers doesn't leave a particularly great first impression. From its bland UI featuring some small and hard to read fonts, to the animation of the characters in the game which float along from left to right with their legs comically swaying underneath them. Thankfully, none of this really affects the gameplay, which slowly reveals itself to be engaging and challenging. You begin the game by creating an adventurer from a number of different classes, be that knight, mage, dragon, and a few others from the usual fantasy archetypes. There is a nice degree of customization here as well, where most elements of your character are randomly generated, although you can keep re-rolling the character until you like how it looks. Once your character is set, you're then presented with your mission for the day, which usually involves killing a big nasty and returning a hero. You're presented with a grid of randomised locations, which you're free to visit in any order. These vary from single enemies to merchants, healers and games of chance. The goal is to work through all these locations, which will finally reveal a boss to defeat. Now when you do come face to face with an enemy, this is where your deck of cards come into play. Starting with a basic deck, you are drawn 3 cards into your hand. More can be drawn later through upgrades or special items. Each card costs a number of action points to play, although some are actually free to play. You play as many cards as you can from your hand within your action point allowance, which again can be also increased as the game goes on. Cards have various effects, from dealing small amounts of damage, providing health and shields, right up to unleashing huge waves of devastating fireballs. Obviously, the more powerful the card, generally the more action or mana points it costs to play. A nice twist to this game, opposed to some of the others in the genre, is that the enemy also plays with their own unique deck of cards from their class. Once you've completed your turn, the enemy will also draw and play at least 3 cards, and play continues back and forth until one character is defeated. It's very hard at first to keep track of what the enemy is actually doing, as his turn is rushed through a little bit, but there is an option for a slow mode, so if you are struggling, check that out in the settings. You get lots of choices to make in this game which keep it really engaging. Even visiting non-combat rooms, you usually have to make a strategic choice of rewards. Do you take the gold or remove a weaker card from your deck? Upgrade a cool card or take a mystery item? Every room has something interesting to interact with. As this is a roguelike game, you will die. A lot. And permadeath exists for your character, and you will lose 90% of your collected gold upon death, but keep any items you collected to pass on to future characters. You also increase your fame level, and at each fill of that bar you get a permanent passive unlock. Things like starting with extra HP, a bigger hand limit and different things like that, which should theoretically allow you to get further into the game on each run, although due to the random nature of locations and enemies, you're never quite sure when death is coming. I really like this system. The runs are quick to get through, and whilst there are people that don't really like the roguelike system of permadeath, I think if a game doles out enough rewards for future runs, then it becomes an addictive loop of collecting and powering up your character for your next attempt. Overall, Monster Slayers is an incredibly fun game. It has constant, interesting decisions to make, and you always feel totally invested at all points. The combat sections are fast, and once you start to build your deck, choosing what cards to play and discard to give you the best chance of winning hands is excellent. Also, later cards do begin to synergise with each other to a certain degree, although not quite as deeply as in Slay the Spire. The permadeath system won't be for everyone, and losing to obviously overpowered bosses you have no chance of defeating at times can be frustrating. The graphics, while basic in their animation, do convey a nice amount of personality, and I appreciated that when you apply gear, the look of your character does change as well. I must also mention here the sound and music, which I think is really excellent, especially the voice acting in the game. From your character's little quips to the enemy's scathing taunts, it all feels nicely polished. How this game will fare once the others hit, I'm not sure. It has enough differences, and if you're a fan of these sort of card-based combat games, then I'm sure you'll happily have multiple in your collection. The best guess for a release for Slay the Spire is May at the earliest, so you should get a good amount of playtime if you pick up Monster Slayers before then. I really enjoyed Monster Slayers a lot, and it will be a game I will continue to keep playing way past this review, and I'm going to give the game a monster 8 out of 10.